Hello friends, welcome to English Minds. Unlock the magic of English literature. Today we will discuss on John Milton's On His Blindness. On John Milton's On His Blindness is a deeply personal sonnet exploring the poet's inner struggle with his blindness and his faith. Written in the form of an Italian sonnet, it reflects Milton's concern about his inability to serve God through his poetic talents due to his loss of sight. The poem moves from despair and questioning to acceptance and trust in divine will. Through a dialogue with his own thoughts and the personified patience, Milton reconciled his limitations, understanding that serving God does not solely depend on active work but also on patience, endurance, encapsulated in famous line, they also serve who only stand and wait. John Milton's On His Blindness is a sonnet reflecting his struggle with losing his eyesight and its impact on his ability to serve God. He initially laments that his poetic talent may now go unused, questioning whether God still accepts him to work despite his blindness. In response, the personified patience him reassures him, explaining that God does not demand great deeds but values sincere faith and submission. The poem concludes with Milton's realization and even waiting in patience is a form of service to God, emphasizing that those who accept his will with humility serve that him just as faithfully. Now text on his blindness. When I consider how my life is spent, जब मैं सोचता हूँ कि मेरी रोशनी मेरी दृष्टि कैसे समाप्त हो गई। कवि अपने नेत्रहीन होने पर विचार कर रहे हैं। और हाफ माई डेज इन दिस डार्क वर्ल्ड एंड वाइड, मेरे जीवन के आधे समय से पहले ही इस अंधेरी और विस्तृत दुनिया में मिल्टन का जीवन अभी आधा भी नहीं हुआ था और उनकी दृष्टि चली गई। एंड दैट वन टैलेंट विच इज डेथ टू हाइड, और वह एक प्रतिभा जिसे छिपाना पाप है। कवि महसूस करते हैं कि उनकी कविता लिखने की क्षमता अब बेकार हो रही है। लॉस्ड विथ मी यूजलेस तो माई सोल मोर बेंट, मुझ में यह बेकार हो गई है, हालांकि मेरी आत्मा इसे और उपयोग करना चाहती है। कवि अपनी क्षमता का उपयोग भगवान की सेवा में करना चाहते हैं। टू सर्व देयर विथ माई मेकर एंड प्रेजेंट, इससे अपने सृष्टिकर्ता की सेवा करना और प्रस्तुत करना चाहते हैं। मिल्टन अपने कार्यों को भगवान को समर्पित करना चाहते हैं। माई ट्रू अकाउंट लेस्ट ही रिटर्निंग चाइल्ड, अपना सच्चा लेखा जोखा ताकि भगवान लौटे तो जब भगवान लौटे तो वे मुझे न डांटें। कवि को डर है कि वे भगवान के सामने जवाबदेही नहीं निभा पाएंगे। डोथ गॉड एग्जैक्ट डे लेबर लाइट डिनाइट, क्या भगवान बिना रोशनी के भी दिन भर की मेहनत मांगते हैं। कवि का सवाल यह है कि क्या उनकी दृष्टिहीनता के बावजूद भगवान उनसे कार्य की अपेक्षा करते हैं। आई फॉन्डली आस्क बट पेशेंस टू प्रिवेंट, मैं भावुकता से पूछता हूँ लेकिन धैर्य मुझे रोकते हैं। कवि को पेशेंस नामक गुण द्वारा सांत्वना मिलती है। द मर्मर सून रिप्लाइज गॉड डोथ नॉट नीड, उस शिकायत को रोकते हुए जल्दी जवाब देती है, भगवान को न तो ईदर मैन्स वर्क और हिज ओन गिफ्ट्स हु बेस्ट, भगवान को न तो मनुष्य के कार्य की और न ही उसकी दी हुई प्रतिभा की जो सबसे अच्छा। बियर हिज माइड योग दे सर्व हिम बेस्ट हिज स्टेट। उनके कोमल जुए को जो सहन करते हैं, जुए को जो सहन करते हैं, वे उनकी सबसे अच्छी सेवा करते हैं। उनका राज्य जो भगवान के आदेश को धैर्यपूर्वक सहते हैं, वे उनकी सच्ची सेवा करते हैं। इच किंगली थाउजेंड एट हिज बिडिंग स्पीड। राजसी है, हजारों उनकी आज्ञा पर तेजी से चलते हैं। एंड पोस्ट ओवर लैंड एंड ओशियन विदाउट रेस्ट। और भूमि और समुद्र पर बिना रुके काम करते हैं। भगवान का राज्य व्यापक है और उनके आदेश पर हजारों कार्य करते हैं। उनके सेवक बिना थके उनकी आज्ञाओं का पालन करते हैं। दे आल्सो सर्व हु ओनली स्टैंड एंड वेट। जो केवल खड़े रहते हैं और प्रतीक्षा करते हैं, वे भी सेवा करते हैं। जो धैर्यपूर्वक प्रतीक्षा करते हैं, वे भी भगवान की सेवा करते हैं। यह कविता हमें धैर्य और समर्पण के साथ भगवान की सेवा करना ही सबसे बड़ी सेवा है, सिखाती है। ऑन हिज ब्लाइंडनेस, यह कविता जॉन मिल्टन ने अपनी दृष्टिहीनता के बाद लिखी थी। इसमें वे अपनी भावनाओं और भगवान के प्रति अपनी जिम्मेदारी पर विचार करते हैं। शुरुआत में मिल्टन सोचते हैं कि उनकी दृष्टिहीनता उनके जीवन को अंधकारमय बना चुकी है। वे अपनी कविताई की प्रतिभा को, जो कविता लिखने की प्रतिभा है जो उनको भगवान से मिली हुई है, उनको भगवान की सेवा में लगाना चाहते थे, लेकिन अब सोचते हैं कि यह प्रतिभा बेकार हो गई है। वन टैलेंट। उन्हें डर है कि अगर वे इसे भगवान को अर्पित नहीं कर पाए तो भगवान उनसे नाराज होंगे। फिर भी उन्हें धैर्य, पेशेंस नाम का गुण सांत्वना देता है। यह बताता है कि भगवान को हमारे काम या प्रतिभा की आवश्यकता नहीं है। भगवान को केवल यह चाहिए कि हम उनके आदेश को धैर्यपूर्वक स्वीकार करें। उनके लिए काम करना जरूरी नहीं, उनके लिए प्रतीक्षा और धैर्य रखना भी सेवा के बराबर है। They also serve who only stand and wait. अंत में मिल्टन समझते हैं कि जो लोग अपनी सीमाओं को स्वीकार कर लेते हैं और भगवान के प्रति समर्पित रहते हैं, वे भी उनकी सेवा में भूमिका निभाते हैं। कहने का अर्थ यह है कि भगवान की सेवा केवल काम करने से नहीं होती, बल्कि धैर्य और विश्वास से भी होती है। चैलेंजिंग vocabularies. Abstruse, obscure, cryptic, recondite, clear, obvious, simple, plain, intelligible, transparent. Ambiguous, having multiple meanings. Vague, obscure, equivocal. Cryptic, uncertain. Clear, definite, explicit, lucid, unequivocal, obvious. Belligerent, aggressive, जो युद्ध के लिए हमेशा तैयार रहता हो। लड़ाकू, हॉस्टाइल, कम्बैटिव, एंटागोनिस्टिक, कॉन्सेसियस, वॉरलाइक, कॉन्फ्रंटियस, पीसफुल, फ्रेंडली, एमिकेबल, पैसिव, नेचुरल, एग्रीएबल। कैकोफनी, हार्श साउंड, यूफोनी। Dissonance, discord, din, racket, noise, harmony, melody, silence, tranquility, peace, concord. Capricious means unpredictable, fickle, जो stable ना हो. Erratic, whimsical, impulsive, arbitrary, steady, consistent, predictable, reliable, consent, stable, deleterious, injurious, detrimental, pernicious, destructive, damaging, adverse, beneficial, harmless, advantageous, helpless, helpful, innocuous, favorable. Ephemeral means short lived, क्षणिक, transient, fleeting, temporary, brief, evanescent, momentary, permanent, lasting, enduring, eternal, long lasting, fastidious, very careful. Meticulous मतलब बहुत सावधान, मीन मेकिंग. Meticulous, scrupulous, exacting, picky, demanding, precise. Careless, indifferent, जिसे फर्क नहीं पड़ता. Sloppy, negligent, easygoing, lax. Garrulous, talkative, loquacious, verbose, chatty, gabby, talkative, rambling, effusive. Reticent, taciturn, reserved, silent, quiet, mute. Having sign of something to come. Omen, forerunner, precursor, herald, indication, signal. Result, consequence, outcome, effect, successor, epilogue. Ineffable, sublime, heavenly, ordinary, mundane, describable, usual. Lugubrious, excessively mournful, melancholy, sorrowful, mournful, doleful, gloomy, despondent, cheerful, jubilant, joyful, optimistic, happy, ecstatic. Munificent, very generous, lavish, magnanimous, bountiful, charitable, benevolent, liberal, stingy, miserly, parsimonious, selfish, greedy, ungenerous. Nonchalant, calm and relaxed, indifferent, detached, unconcerned, casual, composed, aloof, anxious, concerned, nervous, agitated, involved, obfuscate, no confuse, too confused, sorry, confound, blur, cloud, complicate, muddle, bewilder, clarify, simplify, illuminate, explain, elucidate, decipher. Quixotic, idealistic, but impractical, visionary, romantic, impractical, unrealistic, dreamy, utopian, practical, realistic, pragmatic, sensible, grounded, rational, sagacious, wise, prudent, insightful, intelligent, discerning, wise, judicious, foolish, unwise, imprudent, ignorant, naive, reckless, gullible. Tenacious, persistent, resolute, determined, stubborn, steadfast, unyielding, dogged, dozed, weak, indecisive, irresolute, flexible, yielding, relenting. Ubiquitous, present everywhere. Synonym, omnipresent, pervasive, widespread, common, universal, ever present, rare, uncommon, unique, isolated, limited, infrequent. Voracious, having a strong appetite. मतलब भुक्खड़. Gluttons, greedy, hungry, devouring. Stained, full, contented, moderate, satisfied. Now practice session. I hope you are a serious applicant. Please ensure you have a pen and paper ready to take notes or complete your assessment accurately. Who is the poet of the sonnet on his blindness? Option C. John Milton. What is the form of the poem on his blindness? Option B. Petrarchan. The poem follows the Petrarchan sonnet structure with an octave and six sestet. What does the word light symbolize in the poem? Option C. Vision. Light symbolizes the poet's lost eyesight in the poem. What poetic device in used in light is spent? Option C. Metaphor. Light is spent metaphorically represent the loss of vision. What is the central theme of On His Blindness? Faith and patience. The poem emphasizes faith in God's plan and the virtue of patience. What does the term mind yoke refer to? Option A. God's burden. Mind yoke refers to the gentle burden placed by God signifying acceptance of challenges. What literary figure comforts Milton in the poem? Option C. Patience. Patience appears as a personified figure comforting Milton. What question does Milton ask in the poem? Does God expect labor from the blind? Milton questions whether God expects work despite his blindness. What time of rhyme scheme does the poem follow? Option B. ABB, ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE. The poem uses the traditional rhyme scheme of a Petrarchan sonnet. What is Milton's talent as mentioned in the poem? Option B. Writing poetry. Milton acknowledged his poetic talent as his one talent. How does Milton describe the world after his blindness? Dark and white. Option A. Milton describes the world he perceives after losing his eyesight. What is Milton's concern about his talent? It is useless now. Milton worries his blindness makes his talent ineffective. What is the tone of the poem? Option B. Hopeful and submissive. The poem shifts a tone to a tone of hope and submission to God's will, who are thousands and at his bidding. Option A, angels. Thousand and at his bidding refers to angels who serves God. What does Milton learn from patience? To accept and trust God's will. In which line does the poet realize his purpose? Option B. They also serve who only stand and wait. This line concludes Milton's realization and that patience is also a service to God. What is the tone of the last line of the poem? Option C, acceptance. The last line reflects acceptance of his situation and God's plan. What does the poet suggest about God expectations? Option B, God values faith over works. Milton realized that God values faith and patience more than physical labor. What personal struggle is reflected in the poem? Option B, blindness. The poem reflects Milton's personal struggle with his blindness. What does dark world and white symbolize? Option A, physical blindness. How many lines are there in the poem? Option C, 14. A sonnet of the the poem consists of 14 lines. What does Milton fear most in the poem? Wasting his talent. Option B. Milton fears his blindness will render his talent useless in God's service. In which literary era was On His Blindness written? Option D, Renaissance. On His Blindness was written during the Renaissance, reflecting faith and humanism. What does stand and wait imply in the poem? Option A, faithful submission to God's will. Stand and wait implies acceptance and faith in God's plan. What type of sonnet is On His Blindness? Option A, Italian sonnet. On His Blindness is an Italian or Petrarchan sonnet with its characteristic structure. Literary device. Which literary device is used in When I Consider How My Light is Spent? Option A, metaphor. Light represent vision and life. तो इसका metaphorically यूज हुआ है vision and life. Which figure of speech is present in God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts. Option B, antithesis. Option C, paradox. Option C, paradox. The statement appears contradictory but conveys a deeper truth. The phrase light is spent is an example of which literary device? Option B, metaphor. Light is spent, laws of vision. Loss of vision. They also serve who is only stand and wait uses which literary device? Option B, paradox. It highlights a seemingly contradictory truth about serving God. What literary device is evident in thousand at his bidding speed? Option 5. Question 5. Option C, imagery. Vivid imagery describe the speed of angels fulfilling God's will. Which poetic device is used in Who Best Bear His Might Yoke? Option B, metaphor. Might yoke symbolize the burden of God's service. The literary device is employed in the personification of patience. Option C, personification. Patience is given human attributes acting as a confronting guide. Which literary device dominates the poem on his blindness? Option C, symbolism. The poem uses symbols like light and blindness to convey themes. That line doth God exact day labor, light denied, demonstrate which poetic device? Option B, rhetorical question. The phrase "might yoke" is an example of which literary device? Option B, metaphor. What device is used in the poem overall structure, dividing it into an octave and sestet? Option C, sonnet form. The poem structure adheres to the Petrarchan sonnet format. Which device is used in the expression dark wide world and white? Option B, imagery. The line God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts demonstrate which device? Option A, paradox. The sonnet's use of biblical references demonstrates which literary technique? Option B, allusion. Biblical reference enrich the poem themes and depth. The poem tone shift from despair to acceptance illustrate which literary device? Contrast. Option A. The shift in tone underscores the spiritual journey from doubt to faith. Thousand at his wedding, speed and post over land and ocean without rest. Uses which device? Option A. Imagery. The sonnet's resolution, where Milton accepts his blindness, demonstrate which poetic device? Option A. Epiphany. The resolution reflects a sudden realization about God's expectations. What device is used to highlight the questions of God's expectation from the blind? Option B. Rhetorical questions. Milton uses this to explore his doubt and uncertainties. The line, his state is kingly, employs which literary device? Option A. Metaphor. His state is kingly compares God's authority to that of a king. What is the overreaching literary device that ties the theme of faith and service in the poem? Option B. Symbolism. The poem uses symbols like blindness and patience to discuss faith. The use of light to represent vision and spiritual understanding is an example of which device? Option B. Symbolism. What is the literary device used in the juxtaposition of Milton's blindness with God's service? Option B. Contrast. The personification of abstract qualities like patience is an example of which device? Option C. Personification. The repetition of serve in the final line emphasizes which literary device? Option C. Repetition. The repetition emphasizes the importance of serving God in any capacity. The use of paradoxical statement in the poem represent which literary technique? Option B. Paradox. Important quotation. When I consider how my life is spent, the speaker reflects on his blindness and the loss of his ability to see, representing his personal struggle with his condition. कवि अपनी अंधता और दृष्टिहीनता पर विचार करते हैं जो उनके व्यक्तिगत संघर्ष को दर्शाता है. Doth God exact day labor, light night? मिल्टन यह प्रश्न करते हैं कि क्या भगवान उन लोगों से श्रम की अपेक्षा करते हैं जो अपनी दृष्टि खो चुके हैं और जो पहले जैसा योगदान नहीं दे सकते. They also serve who only stand and wait. मिल्टन समझते हैं कि जो लोग धैर्यपूर्वक इंतजार करते हैं और भगवान की इच्छा पर विश्वास रखते हैं, वे भी उनकी सेवा करते हैं, भले ही वे सक्रिय रूप से काम न कर सकें। God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts. Milton realized that God does not require human labor or gifts to be fulfilled. God's will and purpose are beyond human actions and limitations. मिल्टन को एहसास होता है कि भगवान को न तो मानव श्रम की आवश्यकता है और न ही अपने उपहारों की। भगवान की इच्छा का और उद्देश्य मानव क्रियाओं और सीमाओं से परे है। That one talent which is death to hide. Milton refers to his talent for writing poetry, which he feels he should use for the glory of God despite his blindness. I fondly ask, but patience, to prevent the murmur soon replies. कवि अपनी निराशा व्यक्त करते हैं, लेकिन धैर्य जो एक व्यक्ति में चित्रित होता है, व्यक्ति के रूप में चित्रित होता है, धैर्य वे उन्हें आश्वस्त करता है कि उनकी धैर्य और भगवान की इच्छा को स्वीकार करना भी एक प्रकार की सेवा है। Light is spent. A metaphor for Milton's blindness, the phrase signifies the loss of his vision, symbolizing both literal darkness and a spiritual struggle. यह मिल्टन की दृष्टिहीनता का प्रतीक है। प्रकाश का समाप्त होना शाब्दिक अंधकार और आध्यात्मिक संघर्ष को व्यक्त करता है। My soul's delight which I had lost. Milton laments the loss of his ability to write, which had been his passion and purpose in life before he became blind. मिल्टन अपनी लेखन की कला को खोने का शोक व्यक्त करते हैं, जो पहले उनकी रुचि और जीवन का उद्देश्य था। On His Blindness reflects John Milton's personal struggle with his blindness and his philosophical questionings for his purpose in life. The poem symbolizes the importance of patience, faith, and conclusions, and acceptance of God's will, suggesting that one can serve God even without active work. The conclusion draws attention to the idea that divine purpose transcends human abilities or limitations. Today, the poem is still relevant as it speaks to individuals facing personal challenges, urging them to find meaning and purpose in their struggles, and reminding us that patience and acceptance are vital virtues in overcoming adversity. I hope you like this video. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel. Stay tuned for more informative content and make sure to hit the bell icon to never miss an update. See you in the next video. Thank you so much.